gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu Jitsu show, part of the Pod Bros podcast network. Go to podbros.com and check out all the other shows that they have there. Pretty entertaining shows. Go to bigjujitsu.com, click the Amazon banner at the top, and help us out a little bit. If you're going to order stuff from Amazon, and I know you do, it's a cool website. I need you guys to go there, hit the banner. You're not going to pay anything extra, but you help the show continue to be made, hosted, all the other good stuff. I'm Rob the Lord Humongous, and today we have a very special guest. I know we're called Big Jiu-Jitsu, so we're going to have one of the examples of being a bigger guy and being very successful at jiu-jitsu. We have Keith Owen on the show today. So, Keith, thanks for coming on.
Pod Bros!
Yeah, Pod Bros.
Awesome. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm glad to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, anytime. You know,
I love doing podcasts.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we're not bound by like any FCC guidelines. So, you know, if you say fuck every so often, that's okay. You know, it's
got it. I will too. That's the sad part. I will say it. So I hope I don't. I'm trying to do better, but you know, I don't do it in class anymore. I don't cuss in class, so I try not to cuss anywhere else. But man, I'm like a sailor sometimes.
Well, it just means you're passionate about something. That's what
right.
That's what I was told. Like, you know, if you let a bad word slip, it just means you care about a subject enough that
that's right.
You're gonna drop the F-bomb every so often. So, hey, like I said, thank you for being on the show. So why don't you let us know, how did you get started in martial arts? Like, was it just in passing, or is there something that kind of led you to where you are now?
Well, you know, Rob, I've always wanted to do martial arts. When I was 8 years old, I was like, oh, I want to do martial arts. I knew that was something that I wanted to do in life, but my parents were really poor and they couldn't afford it. And so that was not going to happen. And I remember seeing a karate demonstration when I was 8, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. And, it was so cool. And this is kind of embarrassing. I don't know if I should say, I guess I'll share it. I watched the original Karate Kid, and I was like, holy crap, that was so cool. and that's embarrassing. But I did, and it was really cool. And so I got to do martial arts. And so I started taking Kempo Karate, and it was cool. I had a lot of fun in Kempo Karate, but my instructor left in the dead of the night with my money that I had paid him. I had paid him for like a year in advance. You know, he had this Kempo school, and there was, I don't know, 50 people in the school, but boom, all of a sudden he left town, took my money, and it was like, God, what do I do? And, you know, so I went to another Kung Fu school, stayed with that, got a black belt. And then as I got my black belt in the Kung Fu style that I was in, then I started reading Black Belt Magazine, and Black Belt Magazine had these guys named the Gracies in them. And man, they were kicking the crud out of all these guys who were standing up. And I was like, oh, that's the piece of my game that I'm missing. And, you know, my Kung Fu instructor, when I was, would spar, we would be sparring and people would turn their back, you know, and I was a big fan of pro wrestling back in the day. And I didn't know. I just grabbed the guy around the neck, just like in pro wrestling, and I fell down, put my hooks in, and, I put a choke on the guy. And that got to be so repetitive that my instructor said, you can't do that anymore. And I didn't know. I was like, hey man, this is a really cool move. But this was back in like 1990, I think it was. Gracies weren't even around. I hadn't even heard about them in America, you know. So I was doing that, and I thought, oh, this is working good. So finally, I saw the Gracies doing it, and I had to do it too. I was like, oh, I've got to do this. And I looked around, and you know, there weren't very many instructors. You know, there's like Craig Kukuk in New York and the Gracie Academy, and my Professor Pedro Sauer, or Master Pedro Sauer now, was in Salt Lake City. And I was like, okay, in Salt Lake City, I live in Idaho. In Salt Lake City, you know, about where I was living was about 3 hours away. So I would go down there all the time. And so I started training, and man, that was 23 years ago, and I never stopped. Wow. I continued on the whole time. Just don't give up. And man, I was watching Hoist Gracie. I remember the time back then watching Hoist Gracie, and I said, man, I want a black belt just like Hoist Gracie. And now this year I just got my 3rd-degree black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So living the dream, baby. Hey, living the dream.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. It blows my mind just thinking about it. Just remember seeing that and going, wow, I want to be I want to be just like Hoist Gracie.
So like it was just a matter of just sticking with it, keep moving, and now you're here. You're third degree black belt, and that all just came from seeing it. That's amazing
just
to me.
Seeing it, and I had to do it. It was like, I've got to do this. This is the martial arts for me. And I love stand-up martial arts, no problem. If I got to do, because I've always loved grappling. I thought that was so much fun, but I didn't like wrestling. Back in school, man, wrestling was, God, these dudes would just pick you up and slam you, and it was no fun. You had to be super strong, and I've never been a super strong guy. And it was like, man, it was always go, 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 use more muscle, be stronger. It was just, and, getting pinned on your back. So you had to really, put yourself through hell. And I never liked that. So I took a year of that when, no, I don't like it. And I didn't want to do it. And if I hadn't have found jiu-jitsu, I probably still wouldn't be grappling,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how things work out that way. So I know that you say, like,
it's a weird joke though.
Well, you said you're a fan of like you said, the stand-up martial arts. So was the Kung Fu just like a matter of that was what was available to you after the Kempo, or was it just like, oh,
that was what was available. Although, it was fantastic. I loved it. I was glad I did it. It was great. And then I moved on and stand up to my next instructor's name, a man named Joe Cowles. And Joe was a former student of the late Bruce Lee back in Seattle. And Joe lived in a little town that was right close to mine. And I met him and I asked him if he would train me. And it's called Wu Wei. But it comes from the concepts of Jeet Kune Do. It's Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do in Seattle. And Bruce Lee later on went and made Jeet Kune Do. Not to bore you with this, he was kind enough to teach me for about 3 or 4 years in Bruce Lee's martial arts. And Joe, it was cool because he added joint locks to the trapping too. So I had a whole bunch of that, stand-up martial arts experience. And the thing that a lot of stand-up martial arts guys don't know is, man, gravity doesn't care whether you believe it or not. It can happen. You could slip on the grass, slip on gravel, slip over a parking curb, trip over your own feet, get thrown down. And you need to have some groundwork. Consequently, I think that the jiu-jitsu guys need to have some stand-up too. I mean, because they go, you hear, 98% of all fights end on the ground. Well, 100% of them start standing up. So,
that's right.
It's good to have both. But I feel a majority needs to be in grappling, man, because gravity being what it is, it will get you if you don't watch out.
Yeah, it always seems to be like any street encounter. You watch all the videos online. It seems to be every street encounter you see, people grab eventually. After one person gets hit and they're like, oh shit, I don't like this. They're just going to grab. And like you said, they're just going to fall on the ground at that point.
Yeah. You get super tired. You start out like a beast and you're throwing wild haymakers at people and you get tired. Pretty soon you're going, oh man, I'm going to hug this guy so I don't get hit anymore, like you said. And, then you better have something to back it up.
Absolutely. So something that I have in my mind for just, I drive an hour Tuesdays and Thursdays down to Kaiserslautern to teach at the gym down there. What's it like driving 3 hours though? Like what kept you not, just saying, screw it, I go back home. It's the 3 hour drive. There's nothing, that's not a small drive. Like what kept you like occupied in those 3 hours?
Oh, well, the voices in my head really helped me a lot. And then the medication started, and then I had to be alone with myself. But, I think jiu-jitsu really, man, I really loved it. But what's more is I have a great professor. I mean, he is just a guy that you just love to hang around with and you love to talk to. He's always nice. He's always kind. Never has a bad word to say about anybody. So Professor Sauer was always a guy that we always loved, and we just wanted to go see him, and it was like a joy to just be in the same room with this guy. And so that had a big part in it too. Wow, you find the right instructor. And then he teaches some awesome stuff because he was a student of Elio Gracie himself. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. That's like, and that was exciting. And I'd be in the, and I would stay weeks at a time too. And in Salt Lake too. I would stay there and then I would come home and, we would always try to spend as much time as we could training. There were some times where, you just drive up in the morning, come back at night. And we were constantly doing that. And I remember I was on the mat one time. I was a blue belt, I think, and I'm on the mat and I'm with this guy and we're training. He's going, yeah, I haven't been here a lot. I live about a block away from here, and I just haven't been able to get here. I've been super lazy. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, I drive all these hours. I would love to be a block away. I would be here every single freaking day training, and you just do not know what you have by having a dude who learned from Elio and Hickson Gracie. And so I was like motivated all the time, and I don't know, I put a lot of miles on my car starting out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like my downfall too, is my wife will get like, what the hell, you've driven this far? Like, why are you filling up your car twice a week? So I can only imagine 3 hours a week, like 3-hour drives. So
we all, I had lots of buddies and stuff like that, and we all shared and everything like that. And I just want to add this too. This just dawned on me. God, it was such an awesome day when I got my blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, I was the shit, man. I was a blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu. And I remember the professor had like one other blue belt as I was a white belt, and he he had 2 stripes on his belt. His name was Rob Handley. And Rob's a, 4th degree black belt. I always look at Rob going, God, he is so awesome. He's got a blue belt on, and man, I remember the day I got my blue belt, I thought I had made it, dude. And so now blue belt's a dime a dozen, but at that time, man. And then it was purple belt, and then it was brown belt that was awesome. So I felt like I was on the edge of that huge wave, that was right out in front. I had the belt before a lot of other people did. So I had a lot to live up to, a lot of people wanted to kick the crap out of me because, they want to beat up on the high belt. And so it was quite the learning experience. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody wants to tap out the blue belt regardless of how long they've been the blue belt. Just so they can say, I tapped out a blue belt. He's only been a blue belt. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So
yeah, especially back then, it was game on, man. It was game on. There was death matches going on.
So being a bigger guy in jiu-jitsu, I know that there's a lot of emphasis on, you hear all the big, like, oh, this is a big guy move, or oh, this is a little guy move, or, this will work for both guys, but the big guy needs to do it this way. Do you fall into that, or do you believe in, like, moves work for everybody, or what's your philosophy on the big guy, small guy type jiu-jitsu practice?
Well,
moves, I mean.
I learned from the small guy. So I'm a big guy, and the small guy is showing me these, I guess, we quote unquote small guy moves. But as a big guy, I've made all those moves work. I think what it really should be, instead of big guy, small guy moves, because big guy to me has the insinuation that there's some kind of strength involved. Like you're a bigger dude that can be more muscly on this, as opposed to a small guy. That's what I get, and I could be completely wrong. People listening might go, oh, no, I didn't get that. But I think it should be broken down into easy or hard moves, really. Because, like, Professor Sauer never teaches anything that's over three different pieces of the puzzle before the finalization. So, like, I see some videos. I saw one video that literally had 19 steps to get this move to work. And I was like, when are you going to get that, man? Like, where are you going to get that on somebody? He must be a white belt that you're getting that on, because there's 19 different pieces that have to fit together perfectly. So when I hear big guy, small guy, and obviously I'm a big guy, I'm 6'4", I'm, 225, 230. And, so I'm a pretty big dude. And, I have a lot of big guy followers too. And I don't understand why, because I just teach the stuff that Professor Sauer showed me, and I'm always trying to go make things easy as opposed to difficult. Being a big guy in jiu-jitsu is, I think, more of a curse than it is a blessing, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. A small guy, like big guys, when I was a purple belt too, I didn't get it. My whole game was centered around, we would shake hands and we would go. We'd be on our knees and go. And I would try to get on top as much as I could. That was my whole goal. I had to get on top. And I always said to myself, yeah, well, I'll learn the bottom game later. Because once I get on top, you know, as a big guy, I'm able to hold a dude down. But the problem is, you know, a lot of big guys, when they're doing stuff, they're like, say, side control. They'll always just try for like an Americana from side control because they're trying to hold this dude down, and that's it, the Americana. And I guess I'm just talking about myself. It was really hard to do an armbar because I never wanted to give the dude space, because if I gave him space, he might escape, and he might turn the tables on me, and I would end up on the bottom. And I felt really bad about that. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know. And you know, you're caught under there, and being on the bottom is a hellacious place to be if you're not used to it, man. I know you've been on the bottom a time or two, and jiu-jitsu is all fun and games on the top. Oh, I love jiu-jitsu, but the minute you get on the bottom, it's a grind, man, and it sucks. And so that's how I was all the way up to purple belt, to be honest. And, you know, there weren't a lot of people that tell me different. You know, and professors go, Keith, you need to work on your guard all the time to do better. And I was like, yeah, sure, professor, sure. Because in my mind, it was always about winning. I had to win, so I looked good. So, you know, people thought I deserved this belt, and I wouldn't look bad in front of the guys that I taught. And what was happening was that I was postponing my true learning, or I was making my true learning suffering. And what I mean by that is that I needed to be on the bottom. And as a big dude, it's cool in the sense of the cool thing about it is that we get to choose to be on the bottom. Because a lot of times as a big guy, you can throw, a lot of people are smaller than you when you grapple, which again can be a downside because there's not really a lot of guys your size typically. So you're always grappling smaller guys. Well, smaller guys are always having to grapple big guys, so it works out better for them. But as a big dude, I get to choose, especially if I'm grappling a small dude, I get to choose to be on the bottom. And that's the nice thing about it. And so what I tell my guys all the time, and I totally believe that jiu-jitsu is about being on the bottom. It's not about the top game. Top game's easy. It's about being on the bottom. And when you choose to be on the bottom, you go, you know what, I'm just going to be on the bottom all the time. It's going to suck at first, I promise you. It will test your will and whether you want to keep doing jiu-jitsu. But pretty soon things will happen where you'll start to really get better at it. And start with side control, then start with guard if you want to, and then the mount, you know, and let people mount on top of you and just try to get away. And the only time you can get on top is if you sweep them. And then what happens is the only time you can get on top is if you sweep them, you go back and sweep them again. And then you can be on top. But you should have to earn your way as a big guy to the top the whole time, and you shouldn't be too much in a hurry to get to that top position. And I'll tell you, man, I've been crushed. I've had the claustrophobia. I've wanted to quit. And now I love being on the bottom. So if you and I grappled, I would go on the bottom. I would just be, I'm going to work my bottom. Because I always think that the lucky guy is on has the bottom game. So the lucky guy who's on the bottom of, in the grappling situation is the lucky one, because he gets to practice the hardest position that he has, and learn to escape. So if you're a big guy who's always on top, and man, I see that in white belts and blue belts who are huge guys, they always want to be on top. And they'll learn, because eventually, because you're not going to get a purple belt from me if you don't work your bottom game. And so I always say the lucky guy's on the bottom, and you should just become really good at that. So if people are watching my stuff, I'm teaching people how to get out of like side control or the mount using proper technique where I do not have to use any physical attributes. Because I've got to assume that guys aren't going to be as big as me, and they're not going to be able to use that kind of muscular force to be able to get out. How do I teach that to a young lady or 11-year-old kid? Oh, just muscle more. Can't do it. So the proper technique is of utmost importance for a small guy who has to. He has no choice. He ain't muscle anything. But for a big guy, you get to choose, and that's the cool thing. But the reason I say that could be a curse is because people don't want to realize that. They just want to be on top. They want to be in the happy place all the time, in the most comfortable position. And Hickson Gracie always says, become comfortable being uncomfortable in jiu-jitsu. And I took that to heart. And I'm pretty good at being uncomfortable on the bottom. I'm no problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, because to me, like with jiu-jitsu, the way you saw it and the way I saw it, like initially, you know, I'm a little younger than you are, but, you know, when I saw, I remember Hoist had chemo, I think it was UFC 3 in that triangle choke, and,
Yep.
you know, he's holding him down. I'm like, shit, you know, that's probably really important to be able to control somebody from the bottom. And then when I started doing jiu-jitsu, because I did 2 years of wrestling, like me hitting the top part was important, but eventually I was finding myself in guard and freaking out, like you said. Like
It's freaking out.
Like I had no idea what to do. And, you know, my embarrassing story is that my first tournament I ever did, you know, I'm so used to being on top. I'm so used to being like, you know, I'm He-Man, I'm grabbing people, that when this guy mounted me, I tapped out from being smothered.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was my white belt tournament.
Been
I was
there.
like, oh, shit, this is terrible. I got to tap. And I remember looking over at my coach, Brian, and he just, like, shook his head like, good try, I guess, but you need to work.
And as men, we don't want to be controlled. You know, we hate that. Oh, I'm feeling so controlled. Like I have no control over the situation, and I can't get out. And if you can't get out, don't get out. Don't try. Just sit there and, survive. And that's the difference between Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and like a tournament. In Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, they always say, if you can't win, survive. And in tournament jiu-jitsu, it's, you got to go for the win. And I'm cool with that. If you're at a tournament, great. It's just like being in a street fight. Go out there and win. Get on top. Out on the street, go get on top. That's not my point, because you want to be on top out on the street. You're getting on top of the tournament. That's good. However, when you're in the school, when you're grappling in the dojo, in the academy, this is the place where you practice your bottom game. So, because just what happened to you, you get mounted on, and then if you've been there 2,000 times, you go, oh man, I've been through this. I can make it through this. I've got some moves that I can do, and your brain will start to work.
Yeah, and then it makes it a little easier.
Like there'll be, and not so much anymore, but in MMA, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, I would watch guys get mounted on, and they would just turn over, get the hooks in, put the choke on, and it happened all the time. It's like, man, didn't you guys ever practice getting out of mount? And guys would tell me that they don't practice that, because in their mind, they're the ones always on top. They're the ones always, they're practicing their beat down game from the top. And it's so important to practice your defense on the bottom, because you will get there. I promise you, some dude who's better than you at grappling or bigger than you will put you there one day, and you're going to have to either get out or survive, one of the two, or tap to get caught.
Because like you said too, if they're unable to, train this, then how are they going to be able to teach it to other people?
Right. Exactly.
And that's kind of like my philosophy too. Like my whole thing, I mean, like I said, I'm not up to the level like you are, but I want them to be better than I was when I was a white belt, because, God knows I made so many mistakes.
Yeah. And you'll make more.
Oh, absolutely.
I still make mistakes. I'm good at it.
So, on the same vein of like, having troubles and issues doing training, was there ever a time you're just like, dude, I'm done with jiu-jitsu. This is stupid. Like, why did I waste my time? Or has it been pretty steady for you all the way through?
It had been pretty steady for me up until the time where I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. I had moved, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. To Las Vegas, and I was a firearms instructor for a couple of years. I taught people how to shoot, but then I was training at an academy, and I kept my training going. I was a brown belt, and so I was training at this academy, and I really loved the instructor. Man, the instructor is great. However, the students were a lot of MMA dudes, and the MMA dudes were just kicking the crud out of me as far as they wanted to beat the shit out of the brown belt, right?
Yeah.
And luckily my technique was good, and I survived a lot. I got caught. That's not the big deal. But man, I got beat up all the time, and I'm not saying beat up as in love, but my ball beat up. I wasn't used to it, because we were trying to do technique a lot. Well, these guys were like we'll do some technique and we'll put a lot of muscle into it too. All right. And typically what happened was it was like a revolving door, of guys coming in and out, and everybody was getting hurt, and including myself, man. I remember going home and sitting in my hot tub one day, and a lot of times when you sit in your hot tub that you feel better when you get out. There were times where I would get in and I get out and I was not even anywhere close to better. I was hurt all the freaking time. And, it was very, very grueling. So there was a time there, where, I wanted to quit for about a half an hour. Literally, there was a time where I was like, I just remember going, man, I'm done with this. I can't take this anymore. This sucks. I was, close to my black belt. And I said, you know what? And I realized why a lot of brown belts quit, because you don't think that they would, but there are a lot of brown belts who give up and I don't know why, but I had that feeling too. And for half an hour, if you asked me in that time, I would have said, nope, I'm done. I'm done with jiu-jitsu. And then a half hour later, I was like, man, you can't give up right now. And really getting your black belt is about not giving up, saying no matter what happens, I'm going to continue on. God, I got hurt a lot. I got my leg broken by Frank Mir. Frank was nice enough to do that on accident during training. Yeah. And a lot of MMA dudes and oh my God. And I thought about quitting there for about a half hour, and that was the only time that I ever thought that. I slapped myself and said, no way, I'm not giving up. I'm going to get this black belt. And finally I did, 2006, I think it was. That's when I got my black belt, and one of the happiest days of my life too. And now I know I can do anything. I can do anything I put my mind to, within reason.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, flying off a building's one thing, but it's a tough journey, no doubt, and not quitting or, especially facing major injury like that. So what did you do in the meet? Because like you said, you got your leg broken from Frank Mir. Like, what did you do in the meantime when you couldn't train? Or did you just kind of like, it'll be fine, I'll just put a cast on it and keep moving?
No, it hurt like hell. That was one of the shittiest times of my life, being in the cast too, and I was just sitting there in a cast and popping pain pills, man, and I ballooned up, and I was out for, I don't know, 4 months, something like that, 5 months. It wasn't his fault, but it's just a training accident, and you gotta overcome that stuff, man. And that taught me a valuable lesson of, when we're using a lot of strength and we're going really hard, man, if you get hurt like that, you're going to be out of jiu-jitsu. And that injury is your enemy, not the people you grapple with, not your opponents in the ring. It's injury, and you do everything you can not to get hurt. And that summed it up. When I was 4 months, couldn't work, I couldn't be out on the range teaching, it was just terrible. It was a nightmare. It makes a cool story though, but
I agree, yeah.
I would trade that, I would trade that for anything. I hated that so much, So don't get your arm broken. Don't get your leg broken. Don't get shoulder surgery. You got to protect yourself. If you want to really be a black belt, you got to, don't get injured where it ends your career, And if you do get hurt, come back, but you have all these forces going on against you. You have your spouse saying, really, you hurt yourself again? We have to pay this amount of money for, whatever, hospital bills or rehab, or we're going to lose this money because you can't work. I mean, it's tough, man. And there's been plenty of UFC fighters that have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they got hurt right before a fight and couldn't make that money.
Yeah, and that's their livelihood, just because they want to go real crazy. So I have no issues with tapping early.
Yeah, and we sit here and talk, you got to be a man, you got to be tough. Hey, it doesn't take a man to get hurt. It doesn't. All right. Great. You want to gut out the pain and, be injured and have to go to the hospital, and that's tough for you. That's great. Fine. But I'd rather be smart and not get hurt. I'm done with that. After getting my leg broke, and I've hurt so many things, that's what I tell people is don't get injured. And that's why good technique is super important, because it will help you to not make your muscles explode when you're trying to push somebody or or lift somebody up in the wrong way.
Yeah, all important stuff. So, aside from tapping and training smart, is there any other advice you can give to not even just a big guy, but somebody in general through their jiu-jitsu journey?
Yeah, what you think is the real truth and what you hear in lots of publications and things like that isn't necessarily the truth, man, in jiu-jitsu. I hear there is a concerted effort for, people to control how other people think. So you'll buy their stuff, so you'll do this, do that. I really believe, and I'm of the opinion that what I hear a lot, I hear a lot of stuff about training, and it's always geared to the 21 to 26-year-old kid that's got, the heels in a day and everything's cool, and it's all focused on that, and it's all typically focused on tournament competition, and 99% of the people are never going to go to the Worlds and compete, but yet they still have that attitude. And what happens is they get injured, and they get, they don't come back. They don't come back in jiu-jitsu. And if we're going to make jiu-jitsu one of the greatest martial arts in the world, because, I'm not going to say anything about this, but there are several martial arts in the world that I think are really crappy and that take people's money and don't really give any self-defense whatsoever. And if we could teach young ladies and the weaker people how to do jiu-jitsu so that they can defend themselves, man, we're really improving people's lives. And the trouble is that people come to the schools, and what happens is they get the crap kicked out of them right off the bat. And now it's not even about a weak person becoming strong. It's about how much pain you can take right off the bat. And if you can't handle any pain, you're going to leave. Well, and some people are going, yeah, that's how it should be in jiu-jitsu school. Well, the problem is what happens, it's not getting your ass kicked that's the worst thing in jiu-jitsu. I want to tell you what the worst thing in jiu-jitsu is not having anybody who can kick your ass. You're the brown belt, and there's nobody in the school that comes close to tapping you out or even giving you a hard time. Why? Because what happens is it's a revolving door where all these guys leave and new white belts come in, but they don't last very long, but you're the one who stuck it out. And now training is boring. There's no one to really grapple with. And what we want is we want a school of these guys that will really challenge you. The problem is getting them in is going to be getting them in and not getting them hurt and getting them on their way where they'll keep going is an important factor. And jiu-jitsu has to deal with that. And a lot of schools are not dealing with that at all. They're just, like they did back in Brazil, to come in, if you survive, you can take class and you're going to get your ass kicked every single day. Well, and there's something to be said for that. That's cool. I got my ass kicked every single day, but I'm psycho too. I liked it that way. There are a lot of people that don't like it that way who would be good at jiu-jitsu. And if we want jiu-jitsu to go mainstream, we have to have a way to get people in where they're not getting the shit kicked out of them and not getting injured so much. And but at the same time, we're not taking down time to get a black belt to 3 years or 2 years to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu. Heck with that. It took me 13 years to get my black belt, and I just made some black belts. A couple of weeks ago, we just gave some. We awarded some black belts. They earned it. I awarded it, and it took them 10 years to get their black belt. But we have to get people from the beginning to the end without getting injured, without getting beat up, without losing their motivation. And that's going to be important. And I think the instructors have to play a role in it. If you're a student, though, and you're coming in, I'll tell you, I've seen people quit for all kinds of stupid-ass reasons. Some of them quit because the instructor didn't call me enough. He didn't care enough about me. It's like, man, you should be focused on jiu-jitsu and not what your instructor thinks about you or anything like that. You should be like, I'm coming here for the jiu-jitsu. If my instructor doesn't call me ever, it is okay. I'm going to keep going. But it's like, their feelings get hurt. And I got to tell you, there are so many jiu-jitsu guys that are tough on the outside and kind of weak on the inside. It's like they get emotionally beat up about everything, and they get offended by everything. And it's like, one thing that I'm relatively tough on the outside, but I am super rock solid on the inside emotionally. And I really think that's what it takes to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu, is that you're emotionally strong. and being able to handle getting your ass kicked every day. So if you're a white belt, and I'd like to think you come in and you get your ass handed to you, but you need to be a dude that will sit there and go, I don't care, I love this, I'm going to keep going, and I don't care what it takes, I'm going to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And that's what I did. I said, I don't care, I'm going to get this black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm going to be, I want to be just like Hoist Gracie when, back in the day. And then I wanted to be like Hickson Gracie. And now I just want to be me. But I kept on going, and I never gave up no matter what happened. And it's very difficult because it can be brutal, and it's really compounded if you get hurt. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but being tough emotionally, I think is just the key to this. If you're, no matter what, I'm going to do this. I don't care, my wife better be on board with this. I mean, if not, we're going to be talking about it. No, don't get married to a woman, or don't get married to a guy that doesn't approve of your jiu-jitsu, because you're going to end up quitting, man. You're going to make it hell for you.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They got to be on board too.
No, that absolutely answered the question. Like, it's good advice that I think everybody needs, and yeah, especially the relationship stuff. It's important as well. You gotta have somebody who's going to be there to support you through. It's not just like you said, a 2-year thing. It's many years, 10 years, 13, 15, doesn't matter. It's going to be a while.
It's like a doctorate degree.
Yeah, very much.
You're getting a doctorate degree in martial arts, really. It's not a black belt. I mean, we've seen what black belts look like now. This is a doctorate degree that you're getting, man. And it's a long, long haul. You've done just as much training as a lawyer has. And that's tough too, but you can't give up. And if you give up, lots of people will listen to this who won't be around in 3 years. They're going to be around. They'll go, I'm just going to quit. Hell with Keith Owen. I don't care what he says. I'm just quitting. I'm not good at this. Yeah, I wasn't good at it either. You just get better at it. You just got to toughen up, man. And don't care. Oh, my instructor didn't call me. Oh, people are looking at me weird when I come in class. Oh, it's like, and God help you that, the remote control will start to talk to you. Please stay home, watch TV, don't go to class.
Yeah, don't complete your goals
Don't complete your goals, yeah. And some of you don't want a black belt. Okay, well, just come till you're a blue belt, get training. Stay till you're a purple belt after that. Then stay till you're a brown belt. Oh, well, hell, I'll stay till I'm a black belt. But, at least complete something before you quit. Don't quit from white to blue. Shit, if you're going to quit at blue. But don't quit at blue because purple belt's the coolest belt. Get a purple belt.
Yeah.
That means you're really tough. That's the hardest belt to get, I think.
You think purple is?
Yeah, I really do. That's the belt where you got to put all it together and you got to learn to grapple. And, blue's easy, man. You get your blue belt, great. Now you're ready to start learning. That's what that means. But that purple belt, man, you're sticking out from, 4 or 5 years to get your purple and getting good at grappling and big time. And it should be really tough to get your purple belt. And then after that, you get your brown belt, you get your black belt. It's, that's the other side of that hill, I feel. But when do people quit?
Quit at blue.
They quit maybe they get their blue and go, okay, I'm satisfied with that. Well, that's cool. I'm good with that. But, boy, I'll tell you, right at that one strike blue is where people want to just, I don't know if I can handle 4 years, or just shut up and come to class. Show up.
Push it out of the way.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
you can talk to me on Facebook and I will tell you. I will hey, I want to quit. Hey, I'll tell you, knock it off. Go to class. That's what I'll say to you. Keep going. Don't give up.
And just push through it. I mean, that's the hardest part for some people is, like you said, any mental, or any, I guess, emotional adversity, and they just shut down.
Yes.
But
yeah, emotional adversity. Oh, that was well said.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of smart occasionally.
Yeah, it's not necessarily physical. I mean, there's a lot of emotion for a lot of guys. And they don't want to talk about it. They want to be tough, right? They're the badass dudes who've always been tough, and now they're getting their ass handed to them. They thought they were Billy Badass. They use the I'm too old theory, too old to do jiu-jitsu. Well, you just do some good technique and start learning and use your brain rather than your brawn. That's what jiu-jitsu is all about. I mean, we want to do jiu-jitsu till we're 70, 80 years old, so the technique has to happen, and you can work on that. I've got some old guys in my class, almost 60 years old, man. They're training great.
Yeah, I don't think.
But if we've learned the right way to do it, and that's what I was saying about how people are getting lied to when they read. So they think there's a different way. There's a certain way to do jiu-jitsu, and when you do it right, you can do it all your whole life. And they don't understand that, and that's why so many people quit when they're, they'll get a black belt and then they'll quit jiu-jitsu because the younger guys are kicking their ass. They're going, I'm not as good as I used to be. Yeah, because you spent your whole life using athleticism when you should have been finding the real jiu-jitsu that's there under the surface that people don't really realize. If I just weightlift more and I take more steroids and I, exercise all the time, I can be tough and beat people. That's not how it is, man.
Yeah,
Did I go off on a tangent? I don't know.
No, hell no. Like, no, it all makes sense. And it's good because it's a lot of stuff people face. I mean, and this is stuff I've heard before too. Like, not from you. I mean, like problems. Like, I'm too old to start jiu-jitsu. I'm like, nah, I don't know, man. Right, well, like, I don't think that's a really good excuse. I think there's something else going on. Like you said, like nobody wants to get beat up. Nobody wants to be the tough guy and show up somewhere else and get their ass beat.
Yeah, and I just came on this program to tell people the truth because I want people to stay in jiu-jitsu. And, you want to take the easiest way in jiu-jitsu, and not the maximum hardest way. It's so many, and nothing against wrestlers, but guys quit wrestling. It's amazing they quit wrestling at 22, 21, they go to college, but you don't see wrestlers at 35 and 40 doing wrestling. Hey, let's do collegiate wrestling in our garage. They're going, no, man, my body can't take that. So then they go to jiu-jitsu and they do exactly what they're doing. They do that exact thought process in jiu-jitsu, and that's not what jiu-jitsu is all about. That's not jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is about the good technique, which we could talk for hours on what good technique is, but it's the right angle with the right leverage using proper body mechanics rather than sheer brute force.
Right.
And they don't understand that. And I want people to know that, and because it all ties back to, big guy jiu-jitsu. No, man, big guy jiu-jitsu should be small guy jiu-jitsu. It's good technique. I just have the bigger body to do it, but it should have that awesome technique because I am going to grapple people that are bigger than myself, and I need to learn how to survive. And God, there's been times I've had to survive, man. And I walked away. Well, I didn't get tapped. I felt good about that. I'm, 15 years older than this dude, this third-degree black belt that I'm grappling with right now, and I survived against him. Great. I feel pretty good about that,
As well you should. I mean, like you said, that's the whole point of it. So. Yeah,
that's the whole point of it, and people feel like, if I just put some more, if I were just faster, if I were just a little more strong and more athletic on things, and that's not how you do jiu-jitsu. And that's why I think we're being lied to a lot, about it. It's all, time limits and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with tournaments. I highly urge everybody to go to tournaments. But just when you're in your school, there's a different way to train. And if you're going to tournaments all the time, great, go do tournament training. That's cool. But your base should be learning how to survive under there. And, when a dude is like 4 times that, I'll tell you what, it's the absolute division that's king. I love the absolute division. There's no bullshit in absolute division. It's like, and then we wonder why a lot of smaller guys win the absolute division. It's because they've been grappling huge guys their whole life. Yeah. That's why it's so cool for the small dude.
And then they just go to business as normal when it's their turn to fight the big guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no big deal. Absolute's no big deal. So yeah, I see a lot of smaller guys win those absolute divisions, and I don't know, I could be wrong. I don't know, the percentages, but that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, from like a physical, like a normal physical standpoint, it shouldn't be happening, but it does.
Yeah, like normal physical standpoint.
Yeah.
I remember too. I've been a huge guy. I've been big, and Professor Sauer is pretty small. He's not super short, but he's not a big man. And God, we'd be grappling, and he would be like, "Okay, Keith Owen, I'm going to choke you now," and I go, no, Professor, that's not. And then he choked me, and it's like, crap, man. And I know it's coming, and I couldn't stop it. And it's like, I cannot believe that you're telling me that you're going to choke me, and that technique that you're using to get it in there, I just can't stop it. And that's the beauty of having a cool instructor like him, having an awesome guy, because an awesome instructor like Master Pedro Sauer is because everything never was muscle. Completely frown on that.
Yeah, all technique. Beautiful.
And I think we're losing that in jiu-jitsu, and that's cool. You can lose it. All the other students can lose it. My students won't. But I tell you, my students go to other schools, and they're not the biggest, baddest ass dudes in the entire world. But technically, man, they just seen it all, and they know what's up. And we talk about moves, and we're like mad scientists in the school trying to become better, and it really prepares them for awesome. Now, can a guy come in and muscle the hell out of him? Well, maybe. He better have a lot of strength, and he better never get tired. I mean, that's all you need. You don't need jiu-jitsu then if you've got a lot of strength and you never get tired.
Yeah, but then you're like a freaking superhero or something like that.
Yeah. And how do I teach that to somebody? Oh, I can't teach that.
Nah, not at all. Yeah,
I mean, so then jiu-jitsu is just for big, super strong, athletic 21, 22-year-old guys. And that's it. And that's not how jiu-jitsu should be. Jiu-jitsu should be for your entire life.
Oh yeah,
with technique.
Like I said,
do that.
I'm not going to be the youngest man forever, so I still got to be able to do jiu-jitsu when my time comes that I got to, take 800 milligrams ibuprofen just to get out of bed. But I still like to go and roll, That's my goal.
Yeah, man. So, don't get anything broken.
Nah, try not to. So Keith, before we wrap up the podcast, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to? Sponsors, teams, students, anybody? Mike is yours.
Well, I always want to give credit to my instructor, Master Pedro Sauer. Without him, I would not be who I am. So I always try to, always put the master first, because you never drown the man who teaches you how to swim. And then I want to say hello to all my Team Rhino affiliates. I just started my Team Rhino Association in the last year, and I have 20 affiliates now.
Wow.
Guys who want that good technique. So if anybody's interested in joining our Team Rhino Association, one of the prerequisites is that you have to have good character. You got to be a good guy. I don't want anybody who's, everybody has a place to belong, and the scum can go with scum, and I want awesome guys to go with us. And so that's who we're looking for, is honest, hardworking, cool guys, whether you're a stand-up martial artist or on the ground, or a BJJ guy. But we want to make Team Rhino one of the best jiu-jitsu associations in the world, man, based on perfect technique. That's our aim, is perfect technique in our school. And if you own a school, to make some money teaching what you love to do. So, making a good living is important in jiu-jitsu as well, so that you can keep passing it on. And that's what our association is all about. So, lastly, I want to say congratulations to Matt Owen, Dylan Owen, and Tren Long for receiving their black belts just a little while ago and under me. So they're fantastic, and those guys are some of the toughest dudes I know. Jiu-jitsu, holy crap! And I learn a lot of moves from them too. So anyway, that's who I want to thank.
Excellent. Well, Keith, like I said, it's been a real big honor to have you on our show. Given a lot of insight, especially being somebody who started back, with Pedro Sauer being one of the big names out there in the community, and especially promoting technique, the right stuff we need to hear about. So thank you really for being on our show.
Well, it was awesome being on the show. Thanks for listening to me. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
Oh no,
I just want guys to stay in jiu-jitsu.
Of course, no, it wasn't rambling. Like, we want thoughts. We want people, we can just do cookie cutter answers all day, but That's
Yep.
the stuff that I like to hear is people's
Yeah.
thoughts and wherever they take them. That's what we want.
Sure.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. Don't forget to go to our webpage, bigjujitsu.com. Pick up a t-shirt, pick up a t-shirt, there you go, or a patch, whatever you want. Use the banner at the top of the page, bigjujitsu.com. If you're going to buy anything from Amazon, like I said, it helps us out. You won't pay anything extra, but the show gets to keep running. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigjujitsu. On Twitter, handle is Big Jiu-Jitsu. And don't forget to check out our who hosts us, podbros.com, the Podbros Podcast Network. So once again, I'm Rob the Lord Humongous, and we will catch you all next week.